And what kind of player am I? Am I an offensive man or a defensive man? That's right, I'm neither. I play my opponent. If he likes to attack, I force him to defend himself. If he's a cautious man, I draw him into dangerous water. See, you get so frustrated playing defensive positions, you make stupid moves you never make if you were thinking. When you come here, boy, check that shit at the door,
I'm at the top of my game, cut the check. Somebody better king me, I'm the best. Let's play a game of checkers. Better yet, the game don't love nobody. Let's play chess.
I keep forgetting when I'm in love anymore. I keep forgetting things will never be the same again. I keep forgetting how you made that so clear. I keep forgetting things will never be the same again.
I got street.
My entire family is racially diverse, and I believe the left-wing propaganda that Donald Trump was a racist. My father said, "No, he's not, Amber. What are you talking about?" And when I insisted, he said, "Prove it." So to prove my father wrong, I did my research and looked into all things Donald Trump. People have to do their research. I watched all the rallies, and I started meeting so many of you, his red hat wearing supporters. I realized Donald Trump and his supporters don't care if you're black, white, gay, or straight. It's all love. And that's when it hit me. These are my people. This is where I belong. So I let go of my fear of judgment, of being misunderstood, of getting attacked by the left, and I put the red hat on too. Thank you. Love you too. I never felt more free and more love for my country than I do now. I want to thank my father, who's in the audience tonight, for opening my eyes. He served over 20 years in the U.S. military. Thank you for your service, Dad. Where's he at? I love you, Dad. I love you. I love you so much. Thank you. When I met the President and Melania for the first time, he was kind and generous and funny as hell. Very funny. The First Lady was gracious and smart with a smile that will brighten up any room. If you're watching this tonight, you know our country is in trouble. Just like me. When you go to the store and buy food for your family, you're shocked. When you fill up your gas tank, you're pissed. I know I am. And when you turn on the news, you are just exhausted. Inflation is out of control, and you know in your heart it was not like this under Donald Trump. My message to you tonight comes from a humble place. The left told me to hate Trump, and even worse, to hate the other side, the people who support him. When you cut through the lies, you realize the truth. American families were better when Donald Trump was president. We were safer, wealthier, and stronger. A vote for Donald Trump is a vote to put money back in our pockets and good food on our kids' plates. Yes. Or, as Trump would say, it's a vote to make America great again. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. So as you just saw, we had Amber Rose spoke at the RNC National Convention. you're getting a lot of hoopla and a lot of bullshit about the convention so far. And from what I've seen, a lot of it is overblown. A lot of the reaction to Amber Rose speaking is from the Christian conservative crowd. I am a Christian conservative. Got my shit right there. So let me be very clear. When you're running for office, and this is the problem with influencers, pundits, and activists. I posted earlier this morning, and I wanted people to understand what I'm talking about here when I say influencers, pundits, activists, so on and so forth. When what we are supposed to be doing is we're supposed to be, when you're in office, you're supposed to be, conserving. And you know what? I'll just make it nice and easy. I'll just, here. Conservative principles of governance, right there. Conservative principle of governance are accountability, transparency in government, the conservation of the Constitution, the Republic, and the inalienable rights of individuals. All right. I think, and I'm going to leave that down there for a while because I think people really need to get used to that idea. When it comes to what we are supposed to be doing, if you are a candidate, I myself am running the campaign for a congressional candidate who believes very much along the same thing that I do. We think about issues the same and we problem solve the same. But I'm not saying we agree on everything because I don't agree with anybody universally on everything. However, even when it comes to strategy. But I find a lot of the issues that we have on the conservative side of the aisle come to an issue of strategy. And for some, it's an outright end goal issue. So I believe that if you're a representative, it is not your job to get elected and then tell people how they will live their lives. It is your job to represent the people who elected you. And while I have my own personal proclivities and my own personal views, is not my job to go to DC and legislate my particular proclivities and views. It is to go to DC and follow the Constitution, and the Constitution has clear limitations on what is the role of the government, and specifically what is the role of the federal government. Okay, and trust me, I understand the backlash about the platform change. I understand the backlash about abortion no longer being a staple issue in a Republican Party. However, let me be clear, we fought for 50 years to get this down to the state level. It needs to stay at the state level. At the state level, you have the most power to impact state legislation and make your state mirror how you feel. Okay? It is not a federal issue. It should not be a federal issue. For the conservatives out there, my fellow Christian conservatives, let me be completely clear. If you do want to die on this hill and you want to make it a federal issue, guess what? You lose. The vast majority of Republican congressmen in D.C. do not agree with a one-off abortion ban. They do not agree with cutting it down to 15 weeks. They do not agree with cutting it down to 6 weeks. The average person in D.C. is not Ron DeSantis. This isn't Florida. It's not Texas. It's not Alabama, Louisiana, Arkansas, or any of those states. The vast majority of Republicans in D.C. have issues with third-term abortion, and they accept exceptions in case of the life of the mother, incest, and rape. Okay, so even if a national law were to be passed, it would not be something that you agree with. It would not be something that you even you're okay with. So you would still have an issue. And guess what? By pushing it up to the federal level, you actually give the Democrats everything that they're asking for. One, they have the issue to run on, which means we lose. Why? Because you're not empathetic and understanding in the way that you discuss the issue, the way you talk to voters. When a woman says that she's sick, that she's 5 months pregnant and she's considering an abortion, that is not the time to say, well, you should have kept your legs closed. Okay? That's the time to say, you know what? Well, we got this program over here called pregnancy life centers. It's not the time to bash Planned Parenthood. It's a time to propose options that would allow that woman to be successful, get educated, be self-sufficient without government, and raise her children and not have to choose between her future success and the life of her unborn child. Okay? And this is a that goes to a larger issue of we spend more time bashing what we don't like than we do proposing what we do like. And I try to put this in marketing perspectives for people. Guess what? Chevy doesn't spend more time talking about Ford than selling you a Chevy. Okay? AT&T doesn't spend more time talking about Verizon or T-Mobile than selling you an AT&T plan. All right. You draw the comparison from time to time, but you spend more time selling your product than you do talking about your opposition. When you want to die on this hill, because I understand for a lot of people, this is a huge issue. By the way, you can go ahead and comment. You can go ahead and enter the chat. I'll answer your questions if you have any. But I understand that a lot of people want to die on this hill. I understand that a lot of people got issues with it not being in a platform. This is just a recognition at the federal level that when it comes to national RNC, this is not an issue that we're fighting on in the federal government, that our position is that it is a state issue. And for all of you who go out there and try to pound the pavement to make it a federal issue, you're actually doing what the Democrats do. You're actually taking an issue that you feel hopeless on, and you feel that you can't affect at your local level, not because you can't, just because you feel that way. And you're trying to federalize the issue because you think you're going to get the win there, when in reality, you are more likely to get a loss at the federal level than you are to get a loss at your local level. At your local level, I'll give you New Hampshire, for instance. New Hampshire, up here where I'm at, each state rep represents about 3,600 people. And because they represent about 3,600 people, I know every state rep that represents me, and I can walk up to them and tell them, do what you're supposed to do, or you will not be reelected, which is what you should be doing. You should be threatening these politicians with not being reelected, taking away their power, taking away their fame or their pride or everything that they like about being an elected official. Okay. But what I saw, and back to the Amber Rose issue, you have Matt Walsh and Jenna Ellis and many other Christian conservatives, besides their meltdown over the party. Let me be completely and utterly clear. Donald Trump has never been an idealist. I've studied him for a long time, just at a professional aspect, his interviews, so on and so forth, even before he ran for president, just as a businessman. And I can tell you right now, he's never been an idealist. He's not some uber Christian conservative. Okay, this isn't the second coming of Billy Graham or anything like that. He is a populist. He's always been a populist. He's an America First populist, and very much of the same stuff that he's been saying that he wants to pass now, he's been saying for 40 years. He's been saying on Arsenio Hall, on Oprah, on Stephen King, on Jay Leno, anyone who would interview him back in the day, he had said the same thing over and over and over again. These are not new positions. If you really want to get down to it, Donald Trump is like a JFK Democrat. The entire political spectrum has shifted left, and he's standing right where JFK was back then. Even if you look at Ronald Reagan, once again, I didn't leave the party left me. He's standing still, both of them JFK Democrats. You look at much of Donald Trump's policy, it was very much JFK-esque when it comes to policy. All right. What we're dealing with the Amber Rose issue is you have a lot of Christian conservative influencers. And let me be very clear. I am talking about influencers, not necessarily voters. I understand that the vast majority of us voters, even Christian conservatives like myself, we're pragmatic in the way we think. We're willing to accept long-term strategy in order to get back to a level of social conservatism in society. Now, I personally believe that the way you do that is by, right at the bottom of the screen, creating a society built infrastructurally around conservative principles of governance. Okay? Once again, accountability and transparency in government, and the conservation of the Constitution, the Republic, and the inalienable rights of individuals to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay? That is what you're supposed to be doing in office. Those are the limitations on government officials, on elected officials. You are not supposed to be using the power of government to trample on the rights of individuals to pass your particular social prescription for how society is supposed to operate. Andrew Breitbart had said that politics is downstream from culture. I believe he's right. It's not the other way around, okay? Which means every time you attempt to legislate culture on either side of the aisle, what you end up doing is you increase the speed and veracity at which that pendulum, which has a blade at the bottom of it, swings back and forth, and more Americans get hurt every time it passes. Okay? What the average person in the country are asking for, what they're asking for right now is for you to stick to protecting their rights, keeping them out of foreign wars. They want a job where they can afford to pay their bills, put clothes on their back, food on their table, a roof over their head, a few creature comforts, maybe a six-pack of beer at the end of the week to wash it all down. They want to end the foreign wars. They want a dollar that's stable. They want to reverse inflation back to some sort of meaningful level. We want jobs in the U.S. to allow us to provide for our families. We want an education system that allows for school choice and allows our children to be competent adults, meaning reading, writing, doing math, STEM at grade level, at actual grade level. So that back to the point where we're actually competitive with the rest of the world, not sliding further down that scale. Okay? We want very, very simple things. We want to retire one day and eventually pass down something to our kids other than debt. That's where the vast majority of the country is. We don't want you to teach our kids gender theory, nor do we want you to teach them the Ten Commandments. I don't want teachers in school teaching my kids a bastardized form of activism or tolerance, nor do I want them teaching my kids the Ten Commandments in a bastardized version of the Bible. Okay? Because the fact is, I don't trust you. I don't know you. I don't trust you. Teach them the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s, and let's keep it at that. All right? We just want to be able to pass down something to our kids other than debt. We want to be able to build a legacy. We want safe communities. We want very, very simple things in life. The vast majority of America does. Now, the more you get into trying to push the social stuff, and here's where I get aggravated, because, on both sides of the aisle, anytime you start having a political discussion, we want to point to the extremists and the ridiculous people on that side of the aisle and go, well, do you call your side out for doing XYZ or saying XYZ? And do you call your side out for saying XYZ? Well, the reality is I call both sides out for being absolutely and utterly ridiculous. I can't stand most pundits and influencers because you're not responsible for votes. You're not responsible for convincing people to show up to the polls. You're not responsible for knocking doors and waving signs or convincing voters that conservatism is the right path or conservative principles of governance. Most of you have no principles past your own paycheck. So, yes, I take conservatives, and I am talking about conservative influencers, pundits, activists, who they get to yell extremely loud inside their intellectually pure circle, and they get to promote the most extreme points of view that the vast majority of the rest of the country might even agree with, but disagree that government is the vehicle in which we need to get there. Okay? I believe by creating a society of conservative principles of governance and sticking to that, the personal conservatism of the vast majority of the country, and I do mean the vast majority of the country, lives a personally conservative life and will engage with people in a socially conservative manner. And when you create a society that is restricted governmentally, restricted to the conservative principles of governance, you actually create a society in which it necessitates that social interaction, that conservative social interaction, where people engage at a level of respectfulness and personal responsibility. And you will start to see a lot of this stuff. There's already a backlash against the push further and further and further left, where we're trying to convince you that it's okay. Not only is it okay, not only should you be tolerant, but you should advocate for parades every time somebody comes out of the closet, which I think is absolutely, personally, again, Christian conservative, is an absolutely ridiculous position to take, that we should be advocating for any kind of lifestyle. We shouldn't be advocating for anybody to engage in any sort of lifestyle whatsoever. It has nothing to do with what the role of government is. I don't care what you do in your bedroom. I don't care who you're married to. I don't care. It just doesn't freaking matter to me. It just doesn't matter. And that's where we should be at right now, is we should get back to a country that operated solely on conservative principles of governance, where our politicians know that there is a boundary at which they're not supposed to cross. Okay? And once we get back to that place, hopefully we'll get back to that place in the near future. But Amber Rose, I don't see I was not an advocate for her speaking at the RNC National Convention. I had a huge issue with it. Didn't want to see it. I had zero interest in seeing a OnlyFans model on stage at the RNC. A literal, by her own admission, a witch. But the reality is that, you know what, I played the video, and I can play her statement. Her speech was very heartfelt, and I think it resonates with a lot of people who are on the fence, who socially may not align with conservatives. But you know what? A lot of what Donald Trump is proposing has nothing to do with social conservatism, and has everything to do with fixing the decrepit corruption in our federal government. Okay, getting rid of federal agencies that, one, are unconstitutional, two, are overbloated, and do not do what they were originally intended to do. They do not accomplish what they're supposed to accomplish. Now, I believe that is a good thing. I can't imagine why anybody would say that's something we should not be aiming towards. But what you're seeing with this backlash against Amber Rose is that she's not a Christian conservative. And I'll be honest, a lot of the Christian conservatives who are complaining wouldn't pass their own purity test. All right, you wouldn't pass your own purity test. You wouldn't pass by your own standard. You're not worthy of being on that stage. But what we're really supposed to be doing, and this is what I want to be honest. The vast majority of the population does not research into candidates. They see an ad or two. They may get a mailer or two. They'll see something on TV and they'll go, I like that guy. And they happen to be a part of my team, so that's the person I'm going to vote for. Now, Mason. Now, the reality is most people will not research candidates. Most people will not look at their positions. Most people will not go and dig into policy and read legislation, so on and so forth. They'll trust their favorite news outlet to tell them what to think instead of using their critical thinking and researching for themselves. And I hate that that's true, but the reality is that's it. The vast majority of people don't vote based on policy. They vote based on how they feel about how the candidate speaks about policy. And all available data says that that's true. Okay? Which is why you see candidates talking less and less about policy. Sorry, my puppy is trying to tell me something. What's up? All right, I'll let you outside. Give me a minute. The vast majority of candidates don't talk about policy, because the reality is you care less about policy than you do about how they iterate it. Okay? A lot of what you're supposed to be doing, you're supposed to be telling your story, allowing people to connect with you and understand that you're a real person and the reason why you believe the things that you believe. Because if I understand where you're coming from, I can, at least at a bare minimum level, I can disagree with you and I can still support you because I understand. All right. Give me just a minute, guys. Sorry about that. But what I was saying is the vast majority of people aren't going to research policy. They're not going to dig into things. They're going to get stuck in the fanboy politics of it, the social media, the presentation, the show. All right, because it's a game to a lot of the people in DC. We all get caught in the crossfire. The average voter, the average Republican voter, average Democrat voter, the independents, we all get caught in the crossfire while the extremes, the activists, the influencers, the pundits on both sides of the aisle yell at each other. Okay, and they blame all of us for the actions of these influencers. The reality is, if even most Republicans find ourselves not being represented by the influencer class and class, the more we start to pay attention to what they say on a regular basis. Okay, I'm one of them. I criticize our side all the time. I criticize our side all the time because I believe that it's my job to criticize those who are on my team, because frankly, we are not being well served by a lot of these activists. If you guys have any comments or questions or anything, go ahead and let me know. Go ahead and let me know. I'll answer questions. I have to answer questions, take questions from Twitter individually because for some reason StreamYard is not pulling them up. All right, but I do want to say, with understanding that the vast majority of people do not do the research and are not going to dig into policy and legislation, and we have work, we have families, we have other things going on, not to mention we're in the middle of summer. It's a beautiful day outside. It's like 90 something degrees up here in New Hampshire. Humid as all hell. I'm about to go outside and play with my dog after this a little bit before I sit back down and get back to work on the campaign trail. But I had a moment and I want to go over what I thought. Obviously, I already said Amber Rose had a very inspiring, a very real speech that I think resonates with a lot of people who may be on the fence, who are considering it, voting for Donald Trump. But we need to understand that she was not there to be the most pious individual on stage. She was not there to flaunt her piety in front of the rest of the crowd, nor was she there to put on the dance of intellectual purity in front of a room full of people who agree with her. She was there to tell her story, and her story is what people are looking for, and her celebrity status is what gives it more impact. And her background gives it even greater impact because she is definitely not the typical person to vote Republican. And no news flash, I'm sorry, but there are not enough white Christian men and women in America to elect a Republican president. You have to be a Big Tent party. Actually, the Republican Party was founded as a Big Tent party. Women's rights, civil rights, obviously fought slavery, but we've lost a lot of our foundation because vast majority of the people who are pundits and influencers and stuff don't know the history of the Republican Party. Therefore, every time they get confronted with one of these issues, rather than going and pointing back to our own history and our own principles that this party was founded upon, that this movement was founded upon, we hand a win to the left and we just allow them to just trample all over us. Okay? Again, conservative principles of governance is what this party was built on, and it's what we should honestly stick to, because we suck at literally everything else. And what you see from Matt Walsh and a lot of them is they disdain culture because it is not the uber Christian vanilla culture. They disdain it, therefore they refuse to engage in it. And when they do engage in it, they engage in it with this pompous, pissed off attitude, like they're looking down on the rest of society. Now, I view this as counterproductive because I believe the vast majority of people, the reason why Maverick hit top sales is because the vast majority of people want to be inspired. And they want that uber patriotic, old school, socially conservative sort of storylines in our culture and trends and music and things that make us love being American and make us love living our lives, and at the end of the week toasting a beer and having a good day. All right. I mean, let's be honest. When we sit down and we're talking to each other, are we really that divided? So, like this past weekend, we were at the Exeter Independence Day with my candidate, Chris Bright. If you're looking on X, his information is pinned to the top of my page. Please support and donate. But we were at this event, and Chris did a wonderful job. It was about 9 little girls walked up to the tent, and they started speaking, started asking questions, obviously based on generation. They're Gen Z, they lean left. They wanted to talk about abortion. They wanted to talk about stuff like that. And, Chris did very, very well engaging with them. But one of the points that we had made when we were talking to these little girls is, if you're on social media, you'd think that the world, we're so divided and we all hate each other and so on and so forth. But when you walk out in your daily life, are we really that divided? It doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it. It feels like the vast majority of people are not trying to beat me over the head with some LGBTQ agenda, and the vast majority of people aren't trying to beat me over the head with racism or anything like that. I walk around and we walk by each other in the grocery store. Hi, how are you doing? Oh, having a good day. God bless. Have a good weekend. You know, or like happy 4th of July, happy this, happy Memorial Day, happy that. You know, we all just shoot the shit with each other. All right, like I was standing in line. There's a woman with a BLM shirt. I had a MAGA hat on. Great conversation, and not once do we try to beat the hell out of each other, because we're really not that divided in our daily lives. If you think that we are, you probably need to put down social media and go touch some damn grass. Now, I'm not saying there isn't real division, but I'm saying the division that you see amongst the populace is largely social. And what you see in politics, you see two competing ideologies and two competing social ideologies that is built around two competing philosophies of the role of government. Okay? That's what we're really fighting right now, is you have progressivism, systemic racism, Marxism. Systemic racism is really just Marxism cross-dressing as progressivism. And it's been highly focused in Black communities and urban communities for the past 100 years, where the Democrats have literally been in charge since Woodrow Wilson, since FDR. So the same ideology, the same mode of governance has been running their cities for literally 100 years. And because all government is local, let's remember, if you have a problem with policing, with the judicial system, with the community, with corruption in your government, with the laws being passed, the infrastructure in your community, the zoning, the education, all that stuff, a lot of these issues are local issues, which means It's your local politicians who are in charge of it, which means they're the ones whose boot is on your neck. Now, if they're the ones whose boot is on your neck, then you also need to be looking at them. You can't blame the other side of the aisle for what the people in charge of you are doing to you. And this goes for Republicans too. If your jobs got shipped overseas and your sons and daughters are being shipped overseas and you're increasingly not able to pay your bills and your property taxes keep going up and your kids are less and less educated, you need to be looking at your local politicians too. A lot of us are focusing more on federal issues than we are on local issues these days. And we need to pay attention because the vast majority of policy is affected by your local and state governments. Okay? A lot of it is instituted by your local and state governments. If you focus on everything at the federal level, but you ignore everything at the local level, what you end up with is a federal government who is constantly getting more and more powerful, trying to solve your local problems. If you focus on things at a local level, what you have is a government that is accountable to you, transparent to you, and can stand up against DC when DC encroaches upon your rights or starts to step too far or starts to get negligent in their own duties. Okay? Local government, state governments can be a buffer zone between bad policy and the citizenry. Local and state governments can also negate good policy. So if you see a policy that got passed that should have impacted your community in a positive manner but didn't, that's why. Bearded Cyclops on X. Oh, good. I'm glad X is finally showing some comments or working again. He said, we're lacking community. The concept of division comes from not knowing your neighbor. We don't have communal bonds that existed in past generations. Everything is done via phone or internet. We don't meet people the way we used to. Division stems from exclusion, and we tend to exclude ourselves more. Combine that with people on media telling you that you have to choose a side. Yes, you're 100% right. That is very true. And not just that, social media has rewired our brains. There was a recent study that came out. I can't reference the article right now. I'll find it and I'll try to repost it for you guys. But there's a recent study that came out that showed the social media algorithms and heavy usage of social media is having a deleterious effect on the mind to the point where it's overriding our real life experience. And that's why you're seeing a lot of suicidal tendencies and depression and anxiety amongst young women who are using social media at 2, 3, 4 times the rate of young men. You're seeing a lot of these young women using social media so much, and the algorithms, obviously, if you understand how the social media algorithms work, you get fed 10 times more of whatever you click on. So if I click on big booty girls and thongs, my entire Instagram feed will be big booty girls and thongs. If I click on 68 Dodge Chargers, my entire feed will be custom 68 Dodge Chargers. Okay? If I click on political stuff, it'll be all political stuff. And you end up filtering. That gives you an echo chamber that makes you think. So if you're searching for racism, sexism, misogyny, anti-Semitism, stuff like that, if you're searching for any sort of bigotry, you'll get fed 10 times more bigotry. And because we live in an internet age, you're not just getting fed stuff that is local and recent. You're getting fed stuff that is worldwide and continuous, built up over time everywhere in the world. So you have access to every racist instance that has ever happened in the entirety of the United States, in Europe, and anywhere who has internet that has ever been recorded, and it's all coming to your feed all at once, okay? 30, 40, 50 years of racist incidents. And not to mention newspaper articles and historical references and so on, so and constant stories. And so it ends up getting you to a point where it's not that the racist instances are happening more often, but you have access to knowledge of every racist incident things. That has happened throughout history, constantly hitting you all at once. And it gets to a point where it starts to make you change your perception of the world. And that goes for every issue, whether it's dating, whether it's red pill stuff, whether it's misogyny, whether it's anti-Semitism, whether it's extreme weather events, whether it's gun crime, whether it's homicide, mass shootings, terrorist attacks, sexual assault, all sorts of stuff. So a lot of these issues are being compounded by the fact that we're going to social media to get our news, and social media is feeding us a hell of a lot more than we could possibly ask for. And yes, media is telling you they got to choose a side, that you have to choose a side. Like I said before, the pundits, influencers, and activists on both sides of the aisle spend all their time arguing with each other, and all of us are getting caught in the crossfire. The reality, which is why I try to be very, very specific in lining out when I'm talking about politicians, activists, influencers, and pundits, and normal voters. Okay? If you are a normal voter, you are not really a Republican. You are not really a Democrat. You are not really a libertarian. Not a big D, big R, big L libertarian, Republican, Democrat, because you are not an institution or a cog in the party. You are not the party structure. You are someone who tends to vote that way and has membership in that group, but you are not the party. These parties have their own aims. They are corporations and entities unto themselves. So why our founding fathers warned so much about what would happen as we group into parties, and the parties become their own entities, which is they have their own goals and they are constantly moving to accomplish their own things, which is why you see some of these influencers freaking out, is because the party is no longer moving with the same, the Republican Party under Trump is moving back towards principles of governance and away from social conservatism, which, if you leave it up to a lot of them, they will prioritize social conservatism 9 times out of 10 over conservative principles of governance. They will trample on both sides of the aisle. They will trample your rights over government accountability and transparency, over any level of consistency, over any level of efficiency or effectiveness at all. Okay. Please go ahead and ask questions if you want. I'm not going to be on here too long. I'm probably going to go to about an hour and then we're going to shut it off. It's been a long time since I went live, so bear with me. All right, let me check, make sure I'm not missing anything. All right. All right. Well, like I said, I appreciate everyone tuning in. I hope not. Oh, the other big thing that happened recently, JD Vance. Somebody had asked me, what do I think the long term, or what do I think the effect, or what effect JD Vance will have on the election? Minimal. It's minimal. I think he appeals to conservative white men, obviously veterans. He's a Marine Corps veteran like myself, Semper Fi brother. I believe, if I'm correct, to my knowledge, that will make him the first Marine to serve as vice president. So he'd be the first Marine in a chief executive role as either president or vice president. So that's kind of cool. But his appeal is primarily to white conservative men. I don't think it moves independents. I really don't think it expands the base of the party. It just solidifies what we already have. And I think the ideal choice for me, I've said numerous times, would have been Byron Donalds, because Byron Donalds expands the party. He's been vocal about it. He is as MAGA as it gets without being needlessly controversial. He is a big supporter of Trump's. We don't have to worry about him sabotaging Trump or stabbing him in the back or anything like that. And he opens up new demographics by just his ability to talk to other people. And honestly, Vivek had the same thing with younger voters. Okay, I mean, he is controversial in a lot of things that he says, but I believe Byron Donalds would have grown the party and would have set us up for future wins. I don't believe we really gained anything with JD Vance. I don't believe we really lost anything either. It's a very safe bet. But obviously, the issue of Byron Donalds being in Florida was what stopped him from being a consideration. I know he was initially, while they were talking about constitutionally whether they could have made it happen, because 17th Amendment, we don't elect vice presidents the way we used to. We don't actually elect them. We vote for a ticket, and you get one and you get the other. So it is what it is. But as far as everything, I hope the rest of the RNC National Convention goes well. We have more things coming up in the campaign trail this week, getting out, talking to people. I absolutely love working for my candidate because we're not missing anything. We see eye to eye on a lot of things. We solve, like I said, we solve problems very similarly. We talk about issues very similarly. We both hate fanboy politics. We both support Trump, but we both hate fanboy politics. I think I've said numerous times, I think the worship and hatred of Donald Trump are flip sides of the same coin. They're both TDS as far as I'm concerned. It's just fanboy politics. There's a deranged love and hatred for Trump. I think the vast majority of people just love his policies, and as long as he's accomplishing good things for the country, we're copacetic. But there are a lot of people out there who do have TDS, and there's a lot of people who have the same issue with Obama, fanboy politics, man. And I hope fanboy politics dies, finds hole to crawl into and dies somewhere soon. But I think Trump is a necessary thing for this country, because it takes somebody who is not a part of the system to look at the system and see what's broken and to fix it, because everybody in the system benefits from it. And if everybody in the system benefits from it, what incentive do they have to fix it at all? I mean, with him only having one term to get it done, hopefully he goes in and he just goes straight at it. Starts doing everything he said he was going to do on Agenda 47. I've said numerous times, Project 2025 is a hoax. I agree with Sonny Johnson that I think that this was the neocons trying to hurt Trump. They did more to hurt Trump than anything left did. So, and honestly, I think I understand why the Biden administration is using fearmonger, but let's be clear, Project 2025 is a wish list from a think tank and about 100 different conservative organizations and a whole bunch of people from different administrations, all trying to create policy that would have gave them their ideal everything. The reality is, like I said earlier, Donald Trump is not an idealist. He's not Billy Graham. He's not going to go up there and make everybody a conservative Christian and make you read the Bible 5 times a day. That's just not who he is. And there's nothing that indicates that he was ever going to do that. Even if you look at his history, and anybody who told you that he was going to do that lied to you. Anyone who told you he was some uber Christian conservative who was going to mandate reading of the Bible in school was a liar. And I honestly, I hate these games where we try to make our candidates out to be something that they're not in order to get the electorate to vote for them. It's absolute bullshit. The reality is Donald Trump is not some conservative idealist. He's a JFK Democrat who right now is exactly what we need. And you got Joe Biden, who never was really a centrist. He was an establishmentarian, far right, and he is far left on a lot of policies. And he's been wrong on policy for about 50 straight years. He has a perfect record at sucking at pretty much everything, just besides his, obvious cognitive decline that comes with old age. And not everybody ages the same. Not everyone has the same level of cognitive decline. But it is what it is, man. I wish we could be honest and people would stop gaslighting us into thinking that Joe Biden is just as quick and just as sharp as he's always been. That's absolute horseshit. And this whole narrative that it's a stutter, it's dumb as hell. But God bless everybody. I hope I'll probably do a couple more lives, and I'll be doing a lot more now that I have my setup back, and we'll see how we go from there. God bless. But just to have some fun on the way out, here's some music for you.
And what kind of player am I? Am I an offense?
Okay, so who will you be voting for in 2024? Daryl.
Do I have to say his name? I don't want to, but more than likely it's going to be Trump.
Yeah, unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Who are you going to be voting for?
Biden.
And then Victor?
I'm with her.
Oh, Biden, okay.
Trump.
Eric, Trump?
Biden.
Biden?
Trump.
Okay, we're an even split, which I didn't see that coming. So do you think there's going to be a big shift, any sort of change?
I think it's going to be a big shift.
Me too.
Big shift?
Yes.
Really? Okay.
For me, I've always been a Democrat, and it's like for the most part with the Democratic Party, they always make a bunch of promises that they can't deliver.
They use the issues of the African American community as a soapbox to stand on and make promises, just to get us to come out and vote. And then once we vote and everyone's in place, it's like, well, what happened?
And what kind of player am I? Am I an offensive man or a defensive man? That's right, I'm neither. I play my opponent. If he likes to attack, I force him to defend himself. He's a cautious man, I draw him into dangerous water. See, you get so frustrated playing defensive positions, you make stupid moves you never make if you were thinking. When you come here, boy, check that shit at the door.
I'm at the top of my game, cut the check. Somebody better king me, I'm the best. Let's play a game of checkers. Better yet, the game don't love nobody. Let's play chess.
I keep forgetting when I'm in love anymore. I keep forgetting things will never be the same again. I keep forgetting how you made that so clear. I keep forgetting things will never be the same again.
I got street